So imagine it's the summer of 1985. Purple Rain has already come out. The film is a massive success. The soundtrack has come out. It too is a huge success. And the follow-up album, Around the World in a Day, has come out. And the single, Raspberry Beret, is just killing it on the charts. And Prince goes ahead and walks into Warner Brothers' main office and says, "Hey, I want to do another movie." And before he can even get his idea out, Warner Brothers says, "Yep, we'll go ahead and do it." He did eventually get to give his pitch, which was he wanted to do a romantic comedy, which in the 80s were super popular, so Warner Brothers was cool with that. And he wanted to have a unique 1930s vibe to it, like the way people dressed and stuff like that. And to keep that theme going, he also wanted to film it in black and white, which Warner Brothers wasn't too cool with that. So they told him, "Hey, let's go ahead and film it in color, and then we'll make it black and white in post, just in case things don't work out," which Prince was kind of cool with that. Now then, Prince did have a handwritten script for the film, but because he had never written a script before, Warner Brothers was like, "Hold up, how about we go and get an actual screenwriter to write the script for you," which, Prince was cool with. And they chose Becky Johnson, who had never written a script before, but they didn't want Prince to do it because they wanted someone with experience, so here we are. Prince had wrote the film with the idea of having Madonna star as the leading lady in the film. When he presented the script by Becky Johnson to Madonna, she read it and immediately turned it down. I will not quote her on the vulgarity that she used to describe what the script was, but needless to say, she wasn't cool with it. But Prince used the opportunity to get in touch with Madonna's good friend and director, Mary Lambert. Mary Lambert was the one that did all Madonna's videos early on in her career, and quite a bit more of them later on in her career. But Mary Lambert was a very short success on the film, because 4 days into filming, Prince fired her because they were just not seeing eye to eye creatively, and Prince took over as the director, which was a first for Prince because he had never directed a film before. With a vacant spot for a leading lady in the film, Prince went to his next option, which was his fiancée at the time, Susanna Melvoin. Now then, Susanna is a great singer, fantastic dancer, and actually a really good artist. But she's a terrible actress, and they learned that very quickly and had to move off of that idea and look for someone else. The studio ended up finding Kristen Scott Thomas. This was her first film role. So not only do we have a first-time director, we have a first-time screenwriter, and the leading lady of the film is her first time doing a movie. So things are not starting off very well here. Filming started on September 14th, 1985 in France, and production problems continued to worsen as the lead villain of the film, who was played by Terrence Stamp, quit the production as he said, "This is not the film I signed up for." So they quickly had to find a replacement. That replacement was Steven Berkoff, aka the bad guy from Beverly Hills Cop. Filming was completed in November of 1985. To promote the film, Warner Brothers collaborated with MTV to do a Under the Cherry Moon screening contest. Basically, whoever was caller number 10,000 would win the screening of this movie exclusively in their town, and Prince would be your date to the screening. The winner of the contest was Lisa Barber, and she lived in a little town called Sheridan, Wyoming. The best thing about this whole party is how MTV created such a massive party atmosphere in this little bitty town. And Prince, who was a major superstar at the time, didn't let that get to his head. Like, he hung out with everybody in the town. At the screening, he was holding Lisa's hand the whole time. He was actually doing a lot of interviews, which he was not really known to do back then. So he made the most of it, and it was pretty awesome. You can actually find this MTV special online, and I'll have the link to it below. The film was officially released the day after the screening in Wyoming on July 2nd, 1986. The movie was a financial loss, only grossing $10 million on a $12 million budget. The film did win some awards though. Unfortunately, those awards were Razzie Awards. And unfortunately, again, they cleaned house in the Razzie Awards that year, winning Worst Film, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Actor, and Worst Co-Star. And of course, good old Siskel and Ebert added to the pain by giving the film 2 thumbs down. But let's be honest, is this film really that bad? No, it's absolutely not that bad. Matter of fact, the only thing that's kind of weird and off-putting is the fact that it is a black and white film. But just like when you go and watch a 3D movie, you notice it at first, and then you kind of just adjust to it and then forget about it. The same thing happens when you watch this film. Because let me tell you, this film is absolutely hilarious. And I'm not saying that in like a movie like The Room where you laugh at the movie because it's so bad. No, like this is genuinely a good comedy film. The characters that Prince and Jerome Benton play and how they interact with each other and the way they banter back and forth with each other is just absolutely laugh out loud comedy. The problem with this film is when they step out of that pocket of comedy and try to do dramatic elements. The dramatic elements, these people in this film, they don't have the acting chops to pull it off, and that's where the film kind of dips down in quality a little bit. But overall, as a comedy, this is an absolutely great film. I gotta have to be honest with you though, it's gonna be kind of hard to be neutral on this review and on this video because I'm gonna be really biased and one-sided just because I love this film. This is my favorite Prince film. I know a lot of people are going to be really upset about that because, you know, it's always Purple Rain, Purple Rain, Purple Rain. It's the greatest Prince film ever. But this is by far the most rewatchable film, and a lot of that, again, has to do with the comedy in this film. This is also the Prince film that I share the most with people as well. So what is this film about? Well, this film is about Christopher Tracy, played by Prince, and Tricky, played by Jerome Benton. They are two friends who are, for better lack of terms, con artists from Miami who are now living in France, and they like to scheme and scam on rich women to get their money. There's also a little bit of a pimp and gigolo relationship between the two of them, where like Tricky's the pimp who goes and finds the women that Christopher needs to go and pursue, and he kind of on the back end handles the finances as well, whereas Christopher is just there to kind of, you know, do his bedroom magic with all the ladies and keep those customers satisfied so the two of them can still continue to make money. So the film opens up with Christopher playing at a piano in a bar/nightclub when a mysterious lady in white walks in. Tricky immediately notices her and gets Christopher's attention to start doing the googly eyes look thing at her to get her attention and, let her know that he's into her and he's got what she needs for the evening. It apparently works because after making out with her with his eyes, she leaves some cash and I believe it's either an address or a phone number. There's information there and money that he knows that he needs to take that money and go to wherever she's at to do their transaction. We then cut to Christopher waking up in the lady in white's room where he leaves her some nice little erotic poetry and then goes ahead and leaves for the day. We then cut to him entering the lobby of the place where him and Tricky stay, and Tricky is behind the counter with his girlfriend Katie having some freaky deakiness. Being that both of them are in the room, she decides to bring up the fact that, hey, you guys haven't paid rent in like 3 months, which Christopher responds to by whipping out a big stack of cash that he got from the lady in white from his mattress acrobatics from the night before, so he hands that to Katie, and now they're all good financially.
Fascist.
We then transition to Christopher bathing with Tricky by his side while they're discussing business, when via the newspaper they discovered that Mary Sharon, the heiress to the Sharon fortune, is having her 21st birthday party today, which with her turning 21st, she gets her trust fund, which will be $50 million.
$50 million trust fund when she turns 21. Which is today. No.
So the two of them decide that we need to go ahead and crash that party. You, Christopher, need to go ahead and work your magic and get her to fall in love with you and marry you so we can get $50 million. During their discussion, the phone rings, and on the other line is the lady in white, who we now know is Mrs. Wellington. She is calling to request some more of that romantic, erotic poetry from Christopher, which he goes ahead and grants her her wish, and after dropping all those sexy words, he hangs up, and the two of them laugh hysterically about the whole situation. And we go into a movie of the week transition into the next scene, which is at Mary's party. At the party, we're introduced to Mary, and she is well aware of Christopher and Tricky crashing her party. Christopher goes ahead and hits her with the look, but it only stuns Mary. During this party, we find out that Mary knows Mrs. Wellington, and really doesn't like her at all. We also find out that Mary has a fiance named Jonathan. While at the party, she is talking to Jonathan over the phone, and that's when Christopher sneaks in the room and starts making fun of Jonathan while she's talking to Jonathan. This makes her absolutely furious, and she throws Christopher and Tricky out of the party. And when I say throw out, I mean literally throws them out the party.
Punk! Come on back here! 1, 2, 3, punk!
Like Jazz from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This is not before Christopher hits her with a chastity belt disc.
I'm having trouble breathing.
Maybe if you took off your chastity belt, you could breathe a little more better.
Still steaming over the chastity belt remark, Mary goes and meets Christopher at the bar/nightclub he actually works at to give him a message that Mrs. Wellington wants him to meet her later this evening. Not wanting to miss the opportunity to get some more cash as well as to get some more of Mrs. Wellington, he goes ahead and is over there after his shift is through. When he gets there, he notices there's an extra car there. While inspecting and playing around in this fancy automobile, he finds out that it belongs to Isaac Sharon, Mary's dad. You see, Isaac has himself a little side piece, and that side piece is Miss Wellington. So then he makes a large announcement in the courtyard towards the house, and it's hilarious, by the way, of, I know who you are, and I know what you're doing in there, but I won't say anything. And then he just goes ahead and breaks up out of there. Right in time for Isaac and Miss Wellington to come down to the front door to investigate the situation. In the next scene, we learn from an argument between Mary and her dad that her fiance, Jonathan, it's kind of almost like an arranged marriage because Jonathan's family is worth millions as well. So his dad's really pushing for this marriage because he wants their two family fortunes to come together so they can be like billionaires. Because there's no explanation given for her inviting Christopher and Tricky to this fancy restaurant, I'm assuming it's to apologize for having Christopher go and crash headfirst into her dad's extramarital affair. So anyways, she invites Christopher and Tricky to this fancy restaurant to kind of show them what the fancier life is like. This is where the infamous Rekka Stowe scene happens.
Rekka Stowe.
You know what it is? You don't do.
To teach Mary about their world, Christopher and Tricky head up to the main stage at this fancy restaurant and via a boombox perform the song Girls and Boys.
Girls and boys.
Not even into the first verse of this song does Isaac Sharon show up with his goons/bodyguards and shut the whole party down, embarrassing Mary quite horribly as he treats her like a child and makes her leave the scene. After this event, we go back to Christopher and Tricky's room where Tricky actually opens up to Christopher and admits that he kind of likes Mary and starting to feel a little bad about what they're doing to her. Where Christopher snaps back at him and says, "Hey man, why don't you go ahead and handle the money and leave them draws to me?" When the phone rings and it's Mary on the other line, Mary is in bed now and she's trying to tell Christopher, hey, if you were here right now, there's all these wonderful things I would like to do to you. But she's, a little bit embarrassed and can't say the words, so she just hangs up. So Christopher comes up with this brilliant idea to go to her family's compound and to sneak into her room so that she can tell him face to face what she wants to do to him. So these idiots go ahead and go over there. The problem is while Tricky's holding the ladder for Christopher to go in her room, he finds out that guess what? It's not Mary's room. He's in Mary's mom's room. And being that Christopher snapped at him earlier, he thought it'd be funny just to let it play out, so he decides to kind of just walk off and leave him there abandoned in Mary's mom's room, making out with Mary's mom. But then he sees that Mary's dad, Isaac, and his goons are back, so he goes over there, gets up the ladder and says, "Hey man, you in the wrong room, dude. You in the mom's room." So they go ahead and break out of there, and the whole time Tricky is just making fun of Christopher like crazy for his stupid idea and the fact that he was up there making out with Mary's mom.
Mary's mom.
Get the ladder. Shut up. Get the ladder.
The next morning, the fellas are waking up by Mary, who happens to be at their door with a huge bag of cash. Apparently it's from her dad as an apology for missing her birthday. So she's like, why don't you guys come and help me spend this money? So then we go into a giant shopping spree montage with the song Love and Money being played throughout. Apparently taking him on a shopping spree really made Christopher kind of get feelings for Mary. And so at the end of this montage, he's like, why don't you go ahead and meet me later tonight at the Hippodrome? After Christopher goes and sets up this little side meeting with Mary behind Tricky's back, we then cut to Christopher and Tricky having lunch at a cafe. While they're discussing love and life, Tricky notices that up in the corner there are some bats, and he points them out to Christopher, who freaks out, and the entire cafe just empties out.
I ain't afraid of shit.
Are you afraid of bats?
The interesting thing about this scene is this is full improv. This was not in the script whatsoever. This actually shows how good of an actor Jerome Benton is, that he can just on the fly come up with this stuff. Because Prince says his line, and then Jerome goes, oh yeah, were you scared of bats? And when Prince looks up and screams, that's actually Prince screaming out of fear. And that's actually Prince running out of fear out of the cafe, and the rest of the extras and everything just follow suit with Prince. So then Christopher sneaks out to go meet with Mary, not telling Tricky. They meet at the Hippodrome, and for fun they go and race cars. Of course, Christopher wins the race, which I have to say, this is the most fictitious thing about this entire movie. Because let me tell you, there is no way that a 1964 Buick Wildcat is going to ever beat a 1984 Porsche 911 in a race. Ever. After winning the race, they celebrate by making out a lot. And it's a lot of awkward making out because they really don't kiss. It's just like they're rubbing their faces together. It's really weird, and they do it for a really long time. But after all this awkward making out, we go to the next scene, which is actually really good. So we got the two of them sitting in his car, and they're kind of like, I don't know, basking in the afterglow of what they've done. And she's reading over some of his poetry in the back seat, and she starts laughing because apparently he can't spell very well. So his response to her is to start making fun of her for being a rich, pruny little girl, which her response is her screaming at him to shut up. Now then, when she screams at him to shut up, his response is fantastic because he goes, you know what? You tell me to shut up? That's it. I'm calling your daddy. And you know what? The dude literally gets out of the car, goes to a payphone, and calls her dad.
It's a little rich party poop.
Shut up!
Jesus Christ, shut up. I'm calling your daddy this instant.
And the best part, he doesn't just call her dad, he actually calls Mrs. Wellington because her dad is laying in bed with Mrs. Wellington. And after he makes fun of Isaac being there with Mrs. Wellington, he decides to tell him, hey, just to let you know, I love your daughter loves me, and I'm going to marry her, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Of course, Isaac doesn't take this very well and actually threatens to end Christopher's life. So Christopher comes home to find an angry Tricky who is furious with him because he is jeopardizing their business plans by potentially falling for Mary. While this is going on with Christopher, Mary's getting a third degree from her dad for being out all night with this Christopher guy and scolds her on the fact that, you know what, if you don't go through with this marriage to Jonathan, you're gonna ruin my chance of joining our family's fortunes. This really sets off Mary and she just storms out. And apparently they timed up their storming out very well because as Christopher's storming out into the lobby, we have Mary storming in the lobby where they meet each other and they decide that they're going to run away together. We then cut to more awkward face rubbing that is done in a boat and is done in a cave. After all this awkwardness, they come back to the club where a drunk Tricky is there to meet them, who goes ahead and tells Mary in his drunkenness the plan of getting him to fall in love with her so that they can take her $50 million. Obviously, Mary does not take this very well and leaves with the bodyguards that had been following the two of them the entire day. Christopher goes to the bar and starts drinking a lot to try to forget this day, which leads into him having daymares about scary women chasing him, which kind of sobers him up and makes him realize, you know what, I need to go after Mary and fix this. While looking for Mary, Christopher runs into Mrs. Wellington, who is there to present him with two messages. One, Mary is at the airport getting ready to get on a plane to go to New York to meet up with her fiance Jonathan so they can go ahead and get married. The other thing is that she's there to present him with an envelope from Isaac Sharon, and it's a check for $100,000. It's all yours if you just stay away from my daughter. Christopher goes and takes his check, writes a very vulgar message on it, and says, hey, go ahead and give this back to Isaac if you don't mind. He crashes through the gate of the airport and gets there just in time to get Mary. He goes there and grabs her by her hand and takes her back to his car, and they both leave the airport. He then pulls off on the side of the road, and the two of them get in an argument where he ends up confessing his love for her, and they go ahead and start making out while the song Kiss plays in the background. While this is going on, a now sobered up Tricky is going back up to their room to apologize to Christopher for what he had said and try to patch things up as best he can. But when he walks into the room, Isaac's goons are there and they go ahead and beat him up and knock him out. Now then, when Tricky comes to, he escapes the room by picking up a large vase and busting it over one of the goons' heads. As he's running out of the room, he runs into his lady friend Katie and he's like, yo, we gotta get out of here. The bad guys are here. We need to go tell Christopher what's going on. Within a series of events, they all meet up with Christopher and Mary at the docks. They come up with a plan to get Mary and Christopher on a boat so they can go ahead and just leave the city together. So Christopher leaves to go get a boat, and Tricky and Katie go and beat up all of Isaac's goons. Isaac uses his, we'll call, rich power to get the Coast Guard involved, and the way he gets them involved is by lying, saying, hey, there's this dude who just kidnapped my daughter. So Christopher gets a boat, and as he pulls up to the dock and gets out of the boat, he gets shot by the Coast Guard. Mary runs over to him, only for him to utter his last words and dies.
We had fun, didn't we?
We fast forward to Tricky and Katie living together in their own condo/hotel that they own, obviously paid for by Mary. The two of them are reading a letter from Mary, and in the letter she explains that she has still not gotten over Christopher, but she has moved on and living a very fulfilling life. We then roll credits and get the music video for the song Mountains. And before anyone wants to get mad at me and say that I spoiled this film's ending, that is not true, because the movie starts off in the very opening scene. There's a monologue being read where it says, Christopher lived for many women, but he died for one. So you knew coming into this film that he was going to die within 2 minutes of it coming on. I've also not spoiled any of the jokes in this film because there are a ton of them, and I strongly recommend that you watch this film and enjoy them in the film itself. Because as I said before, this film is hilarious. So if you like 1980s rom-coms and don't mind watching a black and white film, please go ahead and check this movie out. And before I break out of here, I like to mention before that yes, this was filmed in full color, which means that there is a full color print of this somewhere. So please, Prince Estate, if you're listening, can you please call up your peoples at Shout Factory and have them get the full color print of this film, do that 4K remaster that they're super awesome at, and go ahead and release this on Blu-ray today. Aside from there being a full color version of this film, there's also an alternative opening to this film, and you can see that online, and I have the link for that down below as well. A new interesting idea has recently come up about this film through Morris Day's book. In the book, he makes the point that Prince is in fact playing the Morris Day character throughout the entire film, even including having Jerome Benton at his side. Morris took it as the film was originally made for him, but because he had messed things up so badly during the Purple Rain filming, that he ended up losing this part. Now then, I have never heard or read anything from Prince or Prince's camp that any of this is true, but I can in fact see it as a possibility. But then again, I've heard over the years and have read over the years that if you ever want to know who Prince really was when he wasn't on stage. He was in fact Christopher Tracy. I would like to thank you for joining me on this episode. Please like and share this video as much as possible. And as always, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel directly, I do have a Patreon account and I have a link for that down below as well. And until I see you all again on that next episode, I wish you heaven.